Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare. Krishna book, Krishna book, Krishna Krishna, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Guru Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaura. Did you know that the mood of service and separation is the highest? Mood of service and separation. This is a summary study of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. The 10th canto specifically describes the pastimes, intimate pastimes of the personality of Godhead in his loving kind of intimate village, family and friends mode. But he has left Vrindavan now because he has some business to do, and his uncle Akrura has come from Mathura, which is the city, the capital city of Kamsa's reign. Kamsa was the king at the time, and has brought Krishna and Balaram there. And Kamsa has an evil plot to destroy Krishna and Balaram. So we're going to read about the first attempt here in Mathura to kill Krishna. And it's chapter 42, the killing of the elephant Kuvalayāpīḍa. Jai Srila Prabhupada. After taking their baths and finishing all other morning duties, Krishna and Balaram could hear the beating of the kettle drums in the wrestling camp. Krishna and Balaram and the cowherd men and boys had all come to the city with Krishna and Balaram under the pretext that there's going to be a big festival and there's going to be a wrestling match. And so there's a lot of excitement that's going on there, getting ready for the festival. They could hear the beating of the kettle drums in the wrestling camp. They immediately prepared themselves to proceed to the spot to see the fun. When Krishna and Balaram reached the gate of the wrestling camp, they saw a big elephant of the name Kuvalayāpīḍa being tended by a caretaker. The elephants are pretty big, but they say this was a big elephant. The caretaker was deliberately blocking their entrance by keeping the elephant in front of the gate. Krishna could understand the purpose of the caretaker, and he prepared himself by tightening his dress before combating the elephant. He began to address the caretaker in a very grave voice, as resounding as a cloud. "You miscreant caretaker, give way. Let me pass through the gate. If you block my way, I shall send you and your elephant to the house of death personified." The caretaker, being thus insulted by Krishna, became very angry, and in order to challenge Krishna, as was previously planned, he provoked the elephant to attack. The elephant then moved before Krishna like inevitable death. It rushed towards him and tried to catch him with its trunk, but Krishna very dexterously moved behind the elephant. Being able to see only the end of its nose, the elephant could not see Krishna hiding behind its legs, but it tried to capture him with its trunk. Krishna again very quickly escaped capture, and he again ran behind the elephant and caught its tail. Holding the elephant by its tail, Krishna began to pull it, and with very great strength he dragged it for at least 25 yards, just as Garuda drags an insignificant snake. Krishna pulled the elephant from this side to that, from right to left, just as he used to pull the tail of a calf in his childhood. After this, Krishna went in front of the elephant and gave it a strong slap. He then slipped away from the elephant's view and ran to its back. Then, falling down on the ground, Krishna placed himself in front of the elephant's two legs and caused it to trip and fall. Krishna immediately got up, but the elephant, thinking that he was still lying down, tried to push an ivory tusk through the body of Krishna by forcibly stabbing it into the ground. Although the elephant was harassed and angry, the caretaker riding on its head tried to provoke it further. The elephant then rushed madly towards Krishna. As soon as it came within reach, Krishna caught hold of the tusk and pulled the elephant down. When the elephant and caretaker fell, Krishna jumped on the elephant's back and broke it, and killed the caretaker also. After killing the elephant, Krishna took an ivory tusk on his shoulder, decorated with drops of perspiration and sprinkled with the blood of the elephant. He felt very blissful, and thus he began to proceed towards the wrestling camp. Lord Balaram took the other tusk of the elephant on his shoulder. Accompanied by their cowherd boyfriends, they entered the arena. When Krishna entered the wrestling arena with Balaram and their friends, he appeared differently to different people according to their different relationships, rasas, with him. Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure in all kinds of rasas, both favorable and unfavorable. He appeared to the wrestlers exactly like a thunderbolt. To the people in general, he appeared as the most beautiful personality. To the females, he appeared to be the most attractive male, Cupid personified, and thus increased their lust. The cowherd men who were present there looked upon Krishna as their own kinsman, coming from the same village of Vrindavan. The Kshatriya kings who were present saw him as the strongest ruler. To the parents of Krishna, Nanda and Yasoda, he appeared to be the most loving child. To Kamsa, the king of the Bhoja dynasty, he appeared to be death personified. To the unintelligent, he appeared to be an incapable personality. To the yogis present, he appeared to be the supersoul. To the members of the Vrishni dynasty, he appeared as the most celebrated descendant. Thus appreciated differently by different kinds of men present, Krishna entered the wrestling arena with Balaram and his cowherd boyfriends. Having heard that Krishna had already killed the elephant, Kuvalayāpīḍa, Kamsa knew beyond doubt that Krishna was formidable. He thus became very much afraid of him. Krishna and Balaram had long hands. They were beautifully dressed and they were attractive to all people assembled there. They were dressed as if they were going to act on a dramatic stage, and they drew the attention of all people. The citizens of Mathura city who saw Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, became very pleased and began to look on his face with insatiable glances, as if they were drinking the nectar of heaven. Seeing Krishna gave them so much pleasure that it appeared that they were not only drinking the nectar of seeing his face, but were smelling the aroma and licking up the taste of his body, and were embracing him and Balaram with their arms. They began to talk among themselves about the two transcendental brothers. For a long time they had heard of the beauty and activities of Krishna and Balaram, but now they were personally seeing them face to face. They thought that Krishna and Balaram were two plenary incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, who had appeared in Vrindavan. The citizens of Mathura began to recite Krishna's pastimes, his birth. Well, that's interesting. The residents of Mathura, because they worship a Vishnu form, when they saw Krishna, they thought Krishna Balaram were plenary incarnations of the Supreme Godhead Narayan, because they're residents of Mathura, Krishna, and they worship Vishnu. Actually, Krishna is the source of Narayan, but they didn't see like that. The citizens of Mathura began to recite Krishna's pastimes, his birth as the son of Vasudeva, his being taken into the care of Nanda Maharaj and his wife in Gokula, and all those events leading to his coming to Mathura. They spoke of the killing of the demon Putana, as well as the killing of Trinavarta, who became like a whirlwind. They also recalled the deliverance of the twin brothers from the Amal Arjuna trees. The citizens of Mathura spoke among themselves. Shankarashura, Keshi, Dhenukashura, and many other demons were killed by Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan. Krishna also saved all the coward men of Vrindavan from devastating fire. He chastised the Kaliya snake in the water of Yamuna, and he curbed the false pride of the heavenly king Indra. Krishna held up the great Govardhan hill in one hand for 7 continuous days, and saved all the people of Gokula from incessant rain, hurricane, and windstorm. They also began to remember other enlivening activities. The damsels of Vrindavan were so pleased by seeing Krishna's beauty and participating in his activities that they forgot the purpose of material existence. By seeing and thinking of Krishna, they forgot all sorts of material fatigue. The Mathura citizens discussed the dynasty of Yadu, saying that because of Krishna's appearance in this dynasty, the Yadus would remain the most celebrated family in the whole universe. While they were talking about the activities of Krishna and Balaram, they heard the vibrations of different bands announcing the wrestling match. The famous wrestler Chanura then began to talk with Krishna and Balaram. My dear Krishna and Balaram, he said, we have heard about your past activities. You are great heroes, and therefore the king has called you. We have heard that your arms are very strong. The king and all the people present here desire to see a display of your wrestling abilities. Citizens should be obedient and please the mind of the ruling king. Acting in that way, the citizen attains all good fortune. One who does not care to act obediently is made unhappy because of the king's anger. You are cowherd boys, and we have heard that while tending your cows in the forest, you enjoy wrestling with each other. We wish, therefore, for you to join with us in wrestling, so that all the people present here, along with the king, will be pleased. Krishna immediately understood the purpose of Chanura's statements, and he prepared to wrestle with him. But according to the time and circumstances, he spoke as follows. You are the subject of the king of Bhoja, and you live in the jungle. We are also indirectly his subjects, and we try to please him as far as possible. This offer of wrestling is a great favor of his, but the fact is that we're simply boys, We sometimes play in the forest of Vrindavan with our friends who are our own age. We think that to combat persons of equal age and strength is good for us, but to fight great wrestlers like you would not be good for the audience. It would contradict their religious principles. Krishna thus indicated that the celebrated strong wrestlers should not challenge Krishna and Balaram to fight. In reply to this, Chinur said, "My dear Krishna, we can understand that you are neither a child nor a young man. You are transcendental to everyone, as is your big brother Balaram. You have already killed the elephant Kuvalayāpīḍa, who was capable of fighting and defeating other elephants. You have killed him in a wonderful way. Because of your strength, it behooves you to compete with the strong wrestlers among us. I therefore wish to wrestle with you, and your brother Balaram will wrestle with Mushtika." Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 42nd chapter of Krishna, the killing of the elephant Kuvalayāpīḍa. Now it's interesting that washermen also had that mentality that you have to please the king. If you don't please the king, you become very unhappy. You'll be punished. Your life will be miserable. You have to please the king. So here the wrestlers are also. You have to please the king. You'll be miserable if you don't please the king. It's material authority. You have to surrender to them. It's interesting because if you think about it, Jesus, his teaching is when it was time to pay taxes. I think this is how it goes, if I remember correctly. And he was questioned, should we surrender to the government? Caesar, Julius Caesar, should we give them money? What should we do? And he said, "Give me one of the coins." And he showed the picture on the coin, and it was a picture of Julius Caesar on the coin. He said, "Whose picture is on the coin?" It's Julius Caesar. Then it's his coin. So you give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and you give to God what belongs to God. So there's like a middle ground there of your duties and obligations to the government. You do those. But then your connection with God, you do that. So you give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. You perform your, basic duties of human life, cooperation with the rest of society, pay your taxes, have some form of income. So that all belongs to Caesar. And you do it as a servant of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. And sometimes it's good government, sometimes it's bad government. In the Old Testament also, not all the kings were good kings. In the Bhagavatam, not all the kings were good kings. You've got Vena, King Vena, he was horrible. He tried to stop all the worship, wouldn't allow the sacrificial fires or the mantra chanting. In one sense, he was a good king because he was so cruel that there were no criminals, that they were scared to death of him. Because he would immediately catch him and punish him because he liked to torture, I guess. So if he got some criminals, boy, they no mercy. So there wasn't much crime, but for spiritual advancement, it was pretty much obstructed at the time. He wasn't a very good king. There were a lot of kings that weren't very good. And in the Old Testament also, a lot of kings that they did the best they could, but a lot of times it wasn't really great. Solomon sticks out. His prayer was he prayed for wisdom in his dealings and in his performing his duties. That's what he asked God for. He asked God, please give me guidance, give me wisdom. So he was a pretty good king. He made a few mistakes too, but hey, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. He was pretty close. He was pretty close to pious religious king. He was pretty close. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. And to this day, he's glorified. And people hanker for the return of his temple, which kind of houses his mood of loving devotion to the Lord, his temple, Solomon's temple. Kind of like, Ram Raj hanker for the Ayodhya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So it looks like with the washermen, they had it down about serving the king, but they didn't acknowledge, So they were giving to the king what belongs to the king, but they weren't giving to God what belongs to God. Because there's God standing right there in front of them, like with the washermen. Krishna and Balaram, they're right there. Said, "Give us some cloth." No, I have to give it to the king. Everything belongs to the king. Get out of here, get out of here. So they're not giving to the king what belongs to the king and give, devotional service to the Lord. So it looks like the wrestlers had that problem too. We're servants of the king, and this is our service, is to wrestle for his pleasure, and he wants us to wrestle with you, so you better do it, because you have to serve the king. And then there's God right there, and the Lord is saying, well, I don't think it's a good idea. We're kind of unmatched, we're just village boys, we play with our friends, wrestling, playing, but you guys are like professional. I mean, you've seen them on TV sometimes, this WWE, I think it is, these professional wrestlers. I mean, they're like, the muscles are like over here, and they're, they're like giants, they're like monsters. So that's what these Chinur and Mystika were like that. They were huge and muscular. And there's Krishna and Balaram, just little village boys, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Chaitanya.